Welcome back to our 2011 Kentucky Derby coverage. In this segment, we're going to take a look at horses that are priced. Mid-range to long shots, we've got a mix of everything in there. And the first horse we're going to start with, Dave, is Midnight Interlude. And this is a horse that I think has a very good shot in this race, but I'm bucking history. And boy, am I bucking a big one in history. There's a thing with Midnight Interlude. People believe if you haven't raced as a 2-year-old, you can't win the Kentucky Derby. And it hasn't been done since Apollo did it back in 1892. So it has been done, but hasn't been done that often. So we're bucking history there. But with that said, if you take that out, this horse is doing everything the way I want to see a horse coming into the Kentucky Derby. He's got 4 career starts. I really would have loved to have one more. I think 5 is that nice number. But he's got the 4 this year. They've been spaced out beautifully, January, just leading right up to this race. Every race Bob Baffert had this horse, he's gotten better. He started out with a 3rd place finish. Then he had a 2nd place finish. Now he's had 2 wins in a row. The win in the Santa Anita Derby, I'll get your take on this horse, but then I'll come back and tell you why I like him so much off of the Santa Anita Derby. But what are your thoughts on Midnight Interlude?
Yeah, I made him my 3rd choice in my picks that I put in the Daily Racing Forum's print editions on Saturday. And yeah, I really like the fact that, coming in off of two wins, yet still seeing 15-1 on the morning line. I think a lot of that is the West Coast horses. People have been downplaying their chances, and so him winning the Santa Anita Derby, they haven't given him too much credit for that. But the way he won it, running down the front runner, who I'll get to in the next video that I like. But yeah, you're saying definitely on the right track, on the improve, and you talk about those long-standing trends. Of course, ages ago they said a filly couldn't win the Derby, gelding couldn't win the Derby, you couldn't win it off a 5-week layoff. There's another half dozen of them that we've seen go by the wayside. So yeah, I mean, you still have to take the horse on its own merits, and yeah, you might get talked off a horse on stuff like that. But if you really love a horse, I mean, I wouldn't let that stop you.
And that's one of the reasons why I've got the horse in here. I'm going to choose to ignore that one stat on that. But after that, and let's go to that Santa Anita Derby. And again, you've heard me make references about going back and watching races and watching races. That race for him, he was caught wide the entire race. He never saw the rail. He was, 3 wide most of the race. When he actually made his move, he had to go a little bit wider in the turn yet. And then as he's coming down the stretch, trying to zero in and collar the horse that you're going to talk about later, Comet to the Top, is they got down deep stretch, Comet to the Top, which happens so often with a front runner that starts to tire, started drifting to the outside. Drifted right into Midnight Interlude's path. Now, the jockey had to grab him. I mean, he really came over, and if he didn't go on and win the race, there would have definitely been, at least they would have looked at it. There might have been an objection, but there would have definitely been an inquiry on it. He still got by the horse. He checked him, got him to the outside, and was able to still get the momentum going again enough to run this horse down. For a horse that didn't race at 2, that's the problem that everybody says, well, they're green, they're inexperienced, they didn't have that seasoning. To show me that he was able to do that with that kind of obstacle thrown at him that he's never had before, and to react in a positive way and win the race, that's why I'm choosing to ignore the fact that he didn't race at 2. He shows me that this horse is a lot maturer than most horses with just 4 career starts.
Right, and we talked before about Nick Zito, and obviously here's Bob Baffert, who certainly knows how to get a horse ready for the Derby, and we certainly have that working for us as well.
And the other part that I like with Midnight Interlude is this is a horse that's going to be a stalker. Okay, he's not going to be on the lead. He's not going to be your stone cold closer where you're going to have to be worrying about how much traffic is he going to have. He's going to be in that second flight of horses that, generally speaking, he can make his move whenever he wants, not have all of the road problems. And one of the keys is if you get that jump on that stone cold closer that gets caught in for that extra, it can only be a split second, but sometimes that's all it makes the difference of the horse race at the wire. So I think Midnight Interlude's got big chances in this race. Bob Baffert at the draw, 15 post position. He's got enough tactical speed to float out of the gate and grab where he wants to be. He doesn't have to be caught up in the early fractions, but he's going to have enough speed to get in front of all of the Stone Cold closers. So he looked happy at the draw. I know he was definitely a lot happier than he was last year at the draw, that's for sure. But that's our take on Midnight Interlude. You've got a horse at a price that's very intriguing. Mucho Macho Man. Why don't you tell us about him?
Yeah, this is a horse that, again, only 12-1 on the morning line, which I don't call a long shot. I call it a mid-priced horse because I'm usually looking for a bigger price. But yeah, in the exotics, yeah, you definitely want to have these horses that legitimate shots. Thing I like about it that it lost the last time as a favorite. Louisiana Derby, 3-2 favorite, would have been a much lower price today, I think, if he had gone out and won that race. But I think you can throw out that race. I mean, there's a lot of times when handicappers are not willing to throw out races. But you always got to remember Secretariat lost the Wood Memorial before going on his Triple Crown run.
He was a pretty good horse, if I remember.
Absolutely. so yeah, one race again, at this time of year, especially when the trainers and the owners, their main goal is the first Saturday in May. So a lot of times you don't even have a horse that's fully cranked in those preps, and they are just using them as warm-ups. Now, again, you can read all the stories, and sometimes you get hints at that kind of stuff, and sometimes you don't. And plus, you don't always want to believe everything you hear from from the trainers and owners either. But yeah, this is a horse that I think definitely has the quality, and I like the fact that we are getting a little more value based on that loss.
That is an absolute great point that you brought up, Dave, about a lot of times people will use the last race before the Kentucky Derby. You hear it called as a prep race, for the Derby, and most people and observers think, well, prep race, they want to win that race, prepping them to go to the Derby. People don't understand that these horses are animals. They're not machines, and there's just so much gas in the tanks. You want to have them peaking at the right time, but you want to leave enough gas in that tank for the big race. And I can tell you as a horse owner, back in Pennsylvania, the biggest race we have, and I own horses, standard-bred horses, or as most people are more familiar with, sulky racing. The biggest race in Pennsylvania is the Adios for our horse at our track. And I had a filly in the Adio Volo, which is like the Kentucky Oaks. It's the female division. And I can personally tell you, that was the race that we pointed to. It was my dream to win that race. And the week before that race, we had our standard-bred horses race weekly, different than thoroughbreds where they race, 4 or 5 weeks. We told our driver in that race prior to that, just give him rail trip, keep her covered up, just pop her out late, just let her pass some horses in the lane. If she reaches, but do not overextend. Don't pop her to a deep stretch. And it was just tightening her up for the next race. And happy to report we did win that the next week. So I was quite happy with that. But that's a great point that most people that aren't on the inside of this sport understand that. So I'm glad you brought that up. I had totally forgot about that.
Yeah,
And
and just a tip for next year's prep races, don't be betting the chalk in the prep races. Look for the prices, the horses that need the earnings to get in. You find a lot of value that way.
That's great points. Now I'm going to take a look at a couple horses that I think big prices that can make some noise on Saturday. And one of the horses that I'm, really, I think is one of the biggest overlays in the field. I don't understand this horse being 30-1. This is in the horse's Animal Kingdom. Horse has post position 16. I just think when they came out with the morning line, he was just too free with all these 30-1s that he did on Saturday. I don't know if he didn't want to offend people or whatever, just grouped them together, but all these horses are not 30-1. And this one, 4 starts, 2 wins, 2 seconds. The horse ran a huge race in the Spiral Stakes at Turfway. He was bumped at the start. Then he was pinched off and taken to dead last and still come back and finished well in that race. He rode the rest of that race along the rail, and then when he came up along the 2 front runners in the last turn, he had the ability, the opening was there for him. He was able to angle out. And there's a term that I use in horse racing, and it's when you get the perfect trip. When you've got a full head of steam and you're coming out of that last turn, if you're able to carry that move wide, it's like a slingshot effect when you're coming off that turn. Mm-hmm. And that's what he got. He didn't have to check the horse, had full speed, and the horse came on, raced very well. I think this horse can do it in this race at a price. I like him. And you got Team Valor as the ownership, one of more powerful ownership groups in thoroughbred racing. Great trainer, Robbie Alvarado, jockey. I mean, it's a three-pack of connections. Owners, trainer, jockey. At 30-1, a horse that's never finished worse than second in his career, and's only had 4 starts. I'm a big believer that horses can make, and it's one of the reasons why we do see these horses win the Kentucky Derbies at long shots, that you look at paper and say, where did they come from? These are kids. Mm-hmm. They have, you hear growth spurts and, they jump up or find themselves. We haven't seen this horse's best race yet. And if it pops up on Saturday, he could light up the tote board. So that's one of my price horses on Saturday. Another one is the horse Santiva, horse number 12. This is another horse, 6 career starts. He's been first, second, or third in 5 of the 6 starts. Now, the one start that he didn't hit the board, unfortunately, was his last race. Mm-hmm. And people look at that and automatically, finished 9th. They take their pen and X them out and move on. Forget about it. The horse is going backwards.
Right, and that's exactly what I was talking about with Mucho Macho Man, who's the favorite in the Louisiana Derby. Yeah, Santiva, favorite in the Bluegrass, finished 9th and being dismissed at 30-1, and certainly has a better chance than that.
Absolutely, and if you look at that race, and what I like about that, this horse had problems from the start. I went back, watched his race, never had an ounce of daylight any time in the race. Just he couldn't get out, and then once they finally got deep stretch, and then there was a little bit of an opening, the race was over. In the horse racing world, that when a horse, if you got to have a stranglehold on him the whole race because you can't get him, you're taking the race out of the horse. You're choking the horse and stuff. He had no shot. I think with his style of racing, there's going to be a lot of speed in the race. He's one of those ones that I believe is going to be in the stalker position. I don't know your thoughts, but to me, I always like the stalker style of racing in the Derby more than the stone cold closers, because you got less chance of traffic jams. Front runners, I've never been a big, never really fell in love with front runners unless you get a race where they're left alone loose on the lead. In 20-horse fields, that generally doesn't happen.
Generally.
And especially when you got a field like this year where there's definitely, 3, 4, possibly 5 horses that like the front, they all can't have it. So, you're going to get some fractions there. I think he's a horse that can't be overlooked at a big price on your exotics.
Yeah. Of those 2 that you mentioned that I didn't include in my top plays, Santiva and Animal Kingdom, I like Animal Kingdom better. And again, I think you made a very good point there about, again, we haven't seen this horse's potential yet. And the first Saturday in May is when you want to be peaking. So yeah, and I definitely never want to talk anyone off a long shot. So
that's it.
That works.
Well, that takes care of our preview from looking at some different horses. Now, let's get to business. The next video, we're going to talk about some picks. What do you like? And we're going to get Dave's actual picks. I'll give you my previews. I'm not going to actually finalize until Saturday. I'll do the last minute wait for weather in case there's any changes, but I'll give you a good idea where I'm looking. We'll be right back.